Hello, I am Dr. Gianni Hayes, and I am the founder of the Writer's Block. I'm an author of 17 hard copy books, 6 e-books, and I write syndicated for 22 columns online. I have with me today Mr. Andy Nunes, who is the Vice President of the Writer's Block. Tom Taylor is the President. I founded the Writer's Block in 1990. I did so because at the time there was nothing here in the Salisbury area and the surrounding areas for writers. The majority of the time we had to travel a distance to have any kind of writer fellowship. So I thought back in 1990, why not start this organization with a small group of people who would like to get published, who would like to learn about agents, as well as the different formats of publishing and how they could get their work critiqued. And that was a central part of it. The first meeting, we had 40 people show up. And at that time, one of the members said, when I asked, what shall we call this? The woman said, who is now deceased, but she said, let's call it the Writer's Block. And she had suggested B-L-O-C-K, and I had changed it to B-L-O-C. We became incorporated, and we are now going into our 19th year. And our membership fluctuates, but anybody is welcome at any time. And since Andy is the Vice President, I will let him tell you about the meeting times and what is going on now in the block.
Sure, thanks, Johnny. Folks, we meet the third Saturday of every month downstairs at the main branch of the Wicomico Library in Salisbury, room number 3. Meetings start from 1, they last about 2 hours. Anybody's invited. You don't have to be a member. If you've got an interest in writing or reading, please come down and join us. We're a lively group. We talk about a wide range of subjects, writing tips. We critique work for you. We do anthologies. We're working on our second anthology now. And we try to help struggling writers with tips on marketing, query letters, any kind of thing that would enhance your experience as a writer.
Tell us how you came upon the Writer's Block and when you joined and what made you join.
Sure. I was watching television, and you were on television with Tom Taylor talking about a workshop for the Writer's Block was going to be putting on. And I said to my wife, I said, well, that sounds real interesting. She said, well, you ought to go. I said, okay, well, I'll go. And I showed up, and I had a wonderful experience. Everybody at the Writer's Block was very friendly. I got to talk to publishers and spin the idea I had for a book at that time. They were very encouraging. I had such a great time listening to lecturers like Mitzi Perdue and yourself and Arlene Chase, the publisher of Cambridge Books, that I just had, there was no question I was going to join up. And now, it's been 3 or 4 years now, and I've been having a wonderful time. And I'll tell you folks, my experience with the Writer's Block helped me break into publishing, and now I've got 3 nonfiction, 1 novel, and co-authored a wonderful book with Gianni since joining the Writer's Block. It's a great experience.
So the Writer's Block is really behind this show, the WriteStuff as we call it, and we intend to interview various authors and find out what their interests are as well as what they hope to achieve in their writing, because all writing has a message of some type. The area that I like best, Andy, is to implement and direct writers' workshops, because I have spent years studying at the University of Rochester and Vermont College at workshops, and I saw the value of those. They're just immense because you get to reach out to different people, and these people give you ideas, and they give you direction, and they give you tips and marketing clues that will help you.
I totally agree. Most of the time people will contact agents, publishers, editors by letter or email, and it's very impersonal. I think the value of a workshop is that you actually get to have hands-on experience. You can go to workshops to improve your ability to write. You can go to workshops on how to do query letters, on how to market your material, and you can meet actual agents, publishers, and fellow writers and editors there at the workshop, so you can show your passion for what you're working directly to the person you're talking to. And I think the personal touch is a great marketing tool and a great seller, because let's face it, when you're writing for publication, you're selling yourself. And if you can sell yourself in person, so much the better.
But we should also mention that things have become a little bit easier for writers, because when I started writing 30 years ago, I met with a lot of resistance. You had to get published through major publishers such as Knopf or Brown, one of the big publishers. And it was very difficult. I was fortunate, and I was able to get 17 books published through major publishers, but also through Cambridge Books as well. But one of the things that has developed, and I would like to hear your opinion on this, of course, is electronic or POD publishing, print on demand, which is now that you write your manuscript, you make sure it's absolutely perfect, that it has no grammatical or syntax errors, it's formatted properly, and then you send it via electronically to agents and publishers. And if they accept it, they can do it as a print on demand. And you have experience in that area.
Yes, of course. 4 of the 5 books that have my name on them have been through Cambridge Books, which is a print on demand company. There's a great deal of control that you have as an author over your work in print on demand, because you can approve the artwork, you can approve the layout of the book, you can provide your own cover, even like I did for my last book. I did my own cover, and it's been very successful. And it's a great way for small authors to break into the market, if they're not already known or signed by a large publisher. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is that book distributors like Baker and Taylor, Washington Distributors, and others are reluctant to accept POD books for distribution to large chain stores like Borders and Barnes & Noble, because print on demand is done, as it said, when you need it. So there is no inventory, and with most small press publishers of print on demand books, there are no returns. And the major
that's
distributors,
the issue.
The major distributors don't want to send a book to Barnes & Noble that Barnes & Noble can't return if it doesn't sell.
Right.
So each format, I think if you're a self-starter, if you're a person that can get out there and go to book signings, do lectures, get on television, write about your book, hit every possible format to sell your book, print on demand can be a very fun and lucrative process for a starting writer. But unless you're with a big publishing company, you may actually make more money with print on demand than you could with a small press. The only difference is if you're a bestseller, like you said with Knopf or Marr or HarperCollins, if you're Stephen King, Patricia Cornwell, or somebody like that gets $1 million book contracts, hey, nothing succeeds like success.
Well, some things have changed over the years, as I mentioned, and the print on demand is a viable option. But as you mentioned, there actually are 2 major drawbacks. One is that some of the print on demand publishers are not that reputable, and you have to be careful. Another problem is that some of them do not clean up the work well enough. It's camera ready. What you send is what you get, unless you get a print-on-demand publisher like Cambridge Books, who does edit your work, who does make sure the format is proper. And I think another problem area with that, as you said, is that big brick and
mortar
businesses, they want to be able to return the books, and some of them even tear the covers off and send them back.
Right.
And they don't even bother to remainder them. And print on demand is, well, don't do that. If you do that, we can't use this book again. The author is lost, we have lost, so don't do that. So there's that whole issue. And there's this fight right now going on between Amazon and some of the distributors and the POD companies. And I think the last downfall, but this again, as you is marketing. A traditional house will put some marketing into it, but ultimately, even with traditional, And even with POD, it's up to the author to do the work. And you can make money on POD because if you have your book published, it only costs you maybe 35% of that price instead of getting 5% royalties. So you could turn around and sell it. So if your book is being marketed as $18 and you're paying $11 for it, or you're paying $9 for it, whatever you work out, whatever you sell it for then is your profit.
Exactly. In my experience, I've found that independent booksellers will love to carry your book if it's a subject that they think the readers will be interested in. But the big box stores, they want the returns. Right now, my print-on-demand company, Cambridge Books, that I have most of my books through, Barnes & Noble will not accept them at this time because of the return policy, and that's the only stumbling block. So, and I'm sure Borders is probably the same way.
And Walton and
but if I go to some of the independent bookstores, like just right here in Salisbury, Henrietta's Books, for example, or Snow Hill, Maggie's bookstore, or even the Book Bin down in Only, Virginia, they love books on the Eastern Shore because they have a lot of tourist readers and a lot of people that want books on the Eastern Shore. So they're happy to get your books, directly from the publisher, directly from you, and they'll work out whatever agreement you want. Now, you won't sell as many. Like, for example, for our book, that Johnny and I did, this one here, the Wycomico County book, we went through Arcadia Publishing, and Barnes & Noble bought 100 copies right off the bat to sell. And I don't know what their reorders have been, but that's, a lot of copies. But, I can go to an independent bookseller with one of my books, and maybe they want 6 copies. But, as Johnny points out, I'm getting a higher markup back to me by doing it myself than what we get from Arcadia on Wycomico. It's a larger percentage. Even though the booksellers want their cut, still there's enough left over for you to do better. You just got to work at it.
Well, the huge difference is, as I pointed out, is you could get anywhere from 5 to 15% royalty on a book. So if a book like this is, let's say, $20, that 5% isn't coming off the top. It's going to go work its way down through the publisher and the graphics person, and by the time we get it, Andy, it's a very low amount. Where if we had self-published a book as this through a POD and it's $20 and we charge $10, instead of making $1 off the book, now we're making $10 off the book.
Somewhere in that range, sure.
So I mean, that's just a hypothetical situation, but that's the difference that we see in the kinds of publishing.
The trade-off is, theoretically, with a large established publisher like Arcadia or any major publisher, you're making it up in volume. They will do the selling and the promotion, and they have their own sales and all that sort of thing. And they'll get you in more stores, you'll get more sales. Theoretically, you'll make more money and make it up in volume, but it's a trade-off. If you're a person with a lot of energy and a lot of personality, and you're not afraid to get in front of a TV camera like Johnny and I are doing today, you can push a POD book, and your profits can probably exceed, a small press book like this. The only way you're really going to make any huge amount of money is if you've got a bestseller. And as you know now, with the economy the way it is, and with publishing costs the way they are, most large publishing companies are returning to the familiar authors that they know will guarantee them the profits that they need. So, Michael Crichton, Stephen King, Patricia Cornwell, Mary Higgins Clark, authors like those, the major publishers are going to keep returning to, even if their material is not up to the standards they used to have years ago, because their name will sell the required amount of books. So as a small-time writer, small press, POD books are probably the best way to break in.
In reality, I think it's been about 10 years now that the traditional publishers have really backed off picking up new authors, because when they're paying Stephen King a $5 million advance, there's not much money there for the unknown author for them to gamble on. It's unfortunate, But these companies, the traditional publishers right now, are facing some serious problems. Many of them are going out of business because people are picking POD books, not only to actually get published, but they often go right into ebook or electronic book form. And if you've seen some of the big box stores now, such as Barnes & Noble, now they offer a site where you can actually download that ebook, the one you want that's in print, and download it as an ebook and take it home with you.
Sure. Well, we live in a modern electronic world where the traditional way of getting your information, which was reading a book, picking up the newspaper, going to the library, the bookstore, is no longer the top choice for the younger generation. For example, my own daughter, she'll, instead of doing like I did, which is go, if I had to do a research on a research paper, go to the library or something like that to look up the material to write the paper, she gets on the internet. You know, she whips out that laptop and there you go. So the younger folks now are turning to electronic reading programs like Pocket Mobi, the Kindle Reader, and other kind of ebook formats. And there are whole websites that do nothing but sell ebooks, like fictionwise.com. And my books, just like yours, are mostly available in electronic format. I sell probably not as many electronic books. People still seem to want to buy the print versions of my books more, but still, every once in a while when I get my statement from Cambridge, I've sold an electronic copy to somebody, and I don't make as much money that way, but again, it's volume. You sell enough of them.
Plus, they never go out of print when they're in a POD.
Exactly.
You can always pull them up. They're stored at the publisher or printer, and you pull them up. One of the things we should touch on, because this falls right into it, as you can see, there are two authors' names on this book. Andy and I are collaborators, and we should talk a little bit about that, because when I first started to publish, I didn't want to collaborate with anybody, and it's only been since about the year 2000 that I went into collaboration. For me, it's an excellent way, and there are several reasons for that. One, I get another person's perspective, and you really need that when you're writing. Two, we share not only the research, the writing, but we share the promotion as well. So it allows me then to concentrate my efforts on the radio show that I do, the talk radio show, my writing, my speaking around the world, because Andy's here as well. And you know, while I may spend a lot of time getting some of the promotions, Andy may find one as well along the way, but he'll pick up some other area. So for the two of us, we work very well together. And you have to know the person who you're working with, and you have to generally like that person as well. What do you think?
I agree with you, because in our case, with our Wacomico County book, our editor put a lot of pressure on us to deliver in certain time frames, certain quality of images, things like that. So if you know, Johnny's right. We both have unique talents that we bring when we put this book together. We both had points of view, resources, contacts, et cetera, that helped us put this book together. But the main thing is, if you can't get along with the person you're working with, you're not going to get anywhere. It's you know, it's like any other partnership. You've got to be able to work together, and because it can be very frustrating. If you lose an image, or one of you got an email, the other one didn't get an email from the publisher, and we're, you know, what happened to the stuff we mailed to them, things like that. It's you know, writing's not always an easy thing, and you know, sometimes it's a good thing to have some help. And you know, Johnny and I approached the subject with a clear vision of what we wanted to do. Our visions meshed. The book's a results, been very popular. We've had a lot of good comments on it. Still around. You can go to just about any place that sells books, pick up a copy. So I feel pretty gratified that our collaborative effort was a winner.
And working well together is very important. You have to sometimes pick up for the other person if something comes along. When we were writing this book, Andy, if you recall, my mother was dying.
Yes.
And the publisher really had no sympathy for that at all. And she put deadlines out that were almost impossible when I'm dealing with a dying mother who did pass away. But Andy was there, and he would say, Gianni, I'll take care of this for you now. And that's the part about a collaborator that you have to really love, is that if something happens for him, I'm going to step in and help assuage the situation. Mm-hmm. He did it for me. But again, you have to like each other. You have to trust each other. You have to both be in communication all the time. Remember how many times we would get emails and automatically we would CC one another when we responded, or when we got them, we would forward them on, so that we were all looking at the same thing. And Andy and I never did anything without first talking to each other, saying, what do you think about this?
Right, exactly. I mean, we didn't do anything behind anybody's back. Every communication that I had with the publisher, I made sure Johnny had a copy of. So everything was out front. So we could build this bond of trust between us as authors. And nobody agrees to everything 100% of the time, but we never had any big squabbles where we were at each other's throats. We disagreed, we resolved it, we worked it out. It was all fine. And Johnny said she was going through a tough time emotionally at that point with her mother being sick, and I was only too happy to try to do what I could to pick up the slack. But I want to also say that in this book we had wonderful cooperation from people that contributed images too, and that's the big thing. It goes back to being able to sell yourself. If you can sell your idea of your book to folks, like we did with the Chamber of Commerce, with people in the community like Paul McGillis, Honus Kane,
George
Chevalier, and others.
Brad Belichico.
Exactly. Then they're willing to contribute what they can, help you out, help you to meet your goals. And some of these images in this book have never been published before as a result. And some of them, new information has been found about some of the photos in this book. Some of these photos that I took myself just to fill in the gaps, it turned out to be a real, hopefully, asset to the community by having this book in print, as well as being a good project for me and Gianni.
An interesting story, Andy, was I had met up with some woman who said to me, oh, I just bought this book that you have out, you and your co-author. And I said, well, did you like it? And she said, well, my husband just recently passed away, and I was glancing through the book, and there is an image of a man diving off a diving board at a hotel in Ocean City. And she said, that was my husband.
And that's right.
And it was a great gift for her, and she took this book and bought 6 copies, passed it out to her children and grandchildren, because it's the local people can look at this book and say, I know that, I know that. Sometimes we do get calls from people or emails saying, well, that isn't exactly the way that happened, that you wrote it in a book. But when you write a pictorial history, you have to understand history is something that's happened in the past, and one of the least reliable things in the world is a person's memory. So other than written notes and printed notes and audios, we also relied on people and some of those experiences that we met up with.
Right, exactly. And yes, and talking to the people, interviewing people was wonderful. For example, George Chevalier contributed a lot of postcard images for this book. Wonderful resource. He's forgotten more about Salisbury than I'll ever know about that. And it was a wonderful experience working with him. With all the pictures the Chamber of Commerce contributed, we were able to show history of Wycomico County from the 1800s right on up to relatively modern times, thanks to all these people and their contributions. And yeah, nothing is perfect. The publisher, though, has graciously agreed that in the second printing of this book, that some of the mistakes that have been uncovered, and luckily most of them were very minor, will be corrected in a future edition. So that's just one of the things that happens during the publishing process, as there's a wart every once in a while.
We try very hard to get the facts. We will double check, but oftentimes when a picture is very dated, it's very old, there is really no true record of that. And we have to go back to newspapers. We have to go back to generations of family that have passed and say, what do you know about this? And again, there's no way we can change that. If we're looking at something that says this is what has happened, and we are able to confirm that, and then we talk to an actual source, that's the best information we have at the time until somebody says to us, I was there, or my grandfather was there, and this is what he told me.
Right, exactly. As you know, it can only, sometimes it comes down to guesswork. For example, my last book that that just came out, I had written about a lady that lived down in Allen, and I found a notation off the internet of a fellow with the same last name that died during World War II. His submarine was depth charged and sank, and I could only guess that he was her son. And I said so in the book. I said, this is only a guess, but I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. And then later, when I talked to somebody from Allen that knew the lady, she said, yes, that was indeed her son. So sometimes you just got to take your best shot and hope for the best, and make sure that people understand you're doing your best.
And that's what we tried our best at doing.
Yes.
It's important for us to mention that no matter what type of book you undertake, there is a lot of work to it. It is not something that you can whip up overnight, even if you're doing fiction, because you need to have your facts right. Fiction requires a degree of reality to be credible, so you also have to research for fiction. But in books like this, or any kind of book, you have to be able to get facts, you have to research, you have to be able to interview people, you have to have good writing skills. The most important skill that you need is a writer. And this I learned probably after I spent 5 years writing, is the ability and the joy of rewriting, because rewriting is where you mold everything much like a sculptor does. So don't get the idea that, oh, you're going to plop down and write a book overnight. That's not going to happen. And when you're dealing with an editor, the editor has his or her own ideas of what they want, and you have deadlines, and you can add to that.
Yes, that's right. I totally agree with you on that. I was like you. When I first started writing, I thought what I'd put on the page was the best thing I'd ever written. It didn't need to be changed, but it's wrong. And with I'm working on a novel now, and I go back and I look at what I've written and I change things, even while I'm still writing the first draft, because it's not pearls of wisdom falling out of your head when you write this stuff. You got distractions, or you misremembered something, and when you go back and read, and you say, no, wait a minute, that's not right. You go back and fix it, or you missed a word. You're typing so fast that you forgot an and or a the or something like that. It's very important, whether you're writing nonfiction or fiction. And for this novel, as you said, you just can't plop down and write it. I've ordered 10 books in the last 3 months to do research just for this novel I'm writing. So your foundation is important. You have to be able to feel comfortable with what you're writing about and know what you're writing about.
I think also that we should mention to our viewers here that you and I are now collaborating on 2 new books, and if any of you have information, contact either one of us, because please. These are going to be very trying books, and one is on cults in the occult. So it deals with Wiccans and witchcraft and Satanists and cults, and the other one is on pretty much hauntings of some type. So we have only maybe 30 seconds, Andy, if you want to add to that before we close.
Sure. I encourage all the folks out there to come and see us at the Writer's Block, of course, and contact Gianni or I if you have any stories about hauntings, the occult on Del Mar. We've learned that that the non-traditional religions and practices are growing here on the Eastern Shore, and we want to be able to talk about them in future books. So please, pick up the phone, email us, or pay a visit to us and tell us your experiences.
Andy and I would like to thank you for watching Write Stuff. And in the future, if you feel that you have something you would like to be interviewed on, just contact Andy or I. And before we sign off, we want to give a great big thanks to PAC 14 for allowing us to do this show, for their time, their talent, and for bringing this to fruition.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
Would you like to see your community organization or nonprofit group featured on PAC 14? To get started, contact us at 410-677-5014 or visit our website at www.pac14.org. PAC 14 is a great way to connect with your community.